At 2:47 a.m., alarms explode through Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Code Blue, ICU 7. General William Bradford, 4 stars, chest full of medals, convulses on the bed. Blood pressure, 60/40. Heart rate, 180. The monitors scream danger. Doctors swarm the room. Dr. Richard Whitmore, Chief of Internal Medicine, Harvard-trained, shouts orders. More antibiotics. Prep for brain surgery. We cannot lose a 4-star general, but they're treating the wrong disease. Outside the glass door stands Marcus Johnson, 28 years old, black, janitor uniform, mop in hand. He stares at the monitors, and recognition flashes across his face. That fever pattern, those vitals. He knows exactly what's killing the general, but when Marcus tries to speak, doctors dismiss him. When he insists, they throw him out. When he refuses to stay silent, they fire him. The entire hospital is failing, and the only person who can save the general is a black janitor's son nobody will listen to. Dawn breaks over Walter Reed, painting the glass towers gold. American flags snap in the wind above perfectly manicured lawns. Inside, soldiers in wheelchairs move through hallways where presidents get checkups and generals receive the finest care money and rank can buy. This is where Marcus Johnson empties trash cans. He arrives at 6 o'clock a.m. sharp, parking his 2003 Honda Civic in the far corner of the employee lot, away from the BMWs and Teslas. He clocks in, pulls on latex gloves, and begins his rounds. ICU on the 7th floor, conference rooms on the 3rd, physician lounges that smell like expensive coffee. At 7:30, Dr. Richard Whitmore stands before 8 residents in the main conference room, his voice carrying the weight of 3 decades in medicine. The situation is critical, he tells them. General Bradford presented with acute sepsis, likely hospital-acquired infection. They've deployed every specialist, infectious disease, neurology, critical care. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs calls every hour. Failure is not an option. Whitmore's Rolex catches the light as he gestures at the imaging scans. $45,000 on his wrist. Italian leather shoes that cost more than Marcus makes in a month. When he speaks, residents snap to attention like privates before a drill sergeant. Marcus enters to empty the biohazard bins, moving along the walls like a shadow. No one looks at him. No one ever does. But 8 years ago, people looked at Marcus Johnson differently. The memory hits him in flashes. Afghanistan, 2017. Specialist, Marcus Johnson, 68W combat medic, call sign Doc J. Dirt and blood under his fingernails. Performing CPR while mortars screamed overhead. Tourniqueting a severed leg as the world exploded around him. Intubating a dying soldier in a collapsing building, his hands steady even as the walls shook. 47 lives saved. A Purple Heart for taking shrapnel in his right shoulder while dragging 3 wounded men to safety. His commanding officer recommended him for promotion, calling him the best medic the unit had ever seen. Then came Johns Hopkins Medical School. Marcus in lecture halls, white coat crisp, stethoscope around his neck. Professors praised his diagnostic instincts, his ability to see patterns others missed. He was going to be a doctor. Finally. Until the phone call came during 2nd year. Your father collapsed at work. Stroke. You need to come now. Marcus found Thomas Johnson in a hospital bed, half his face drooping, one arm useless. His father, who had mopped these same floors for 40 years, who worked double shifts to send Marcus to college, who never missed a day even when his back screamed in pain, looked small and broken. Son, Thomas whispered through the good side of his mouth, don't quit school for me. Marcus held his father's hand. Dad, you worked 40 years so I could have a chance. Now it's my turn. He withdrew from Hopkins. No tuition refund. Student loans, $180,000. His father needed 24-hour care, and someone had to pay the rent, the medical bills, the physical therapy that insurance wouldn't cover. 3 years later, Marcus still lives in the same small apartment. Every night after his father falls asleep, Marcus opens his laptop. He studies Harrison's Principles of Internal Medicine. He watches surgical videos on YouTube. He reviews case studies from the New England Journal of Medicine, taking notes in the same leather-filled notebook he carried in Kandahar. The notebook sits on his desk now, worn and stained. Page 47 reads, Brucellosis, Malta fever, endemic to the Middle East and Mediterranean, transmission through unpasteurized dairy or animal contact. Symptoms, undulant fever, joint pain, enlarged liver and spleen neurological complications, often misdiagnosed as sepsis or malaria. Treated 3 cases in Kandahar, all soldiers who ate local cheese. Treatment, doxycycline 100 mg twice daily, plus rifampin 600 mg daily for 6 weeks. Marcus closes the notebook every night with the same whisper. Never forget. Every case. Every symptom. One day I'll use this again. Inside that notebook, tucked between pages, is a photograph. Young Marcus in combat fatigues, surrounded by grinning soldiers, all of them alive because of him. The caption, written in Sharpie, Doc J, the man who saved our lives. Marcus Johnson carries that photograph to work every day, a reminder of who he used to be before the world decided a janitor's uniform was all he deserved to wear. By morning, whispers circulate through the ICU nursing station. General Bradford isn't responding. 3 different antibiotics, no improvement. Dr. Whitmore ordered a brain MRI. Possible encephalitis. Marcus leans his mop against the wall near the station, adjusting his cleaning cart while a young resident scrolls through an iPad nearby. The resident mutters to himself, reviewing notes. The fever pattern is strange. Spikes every evening, normal by morning. Classic undulant fever, but Whitmore insists it's sepsis. Undulant fever. The words hit Marcus like a punch. His mind races backward. Kandahar, 2017. Sergeant Miller sweating on a cot in the field hospital tent, his face gray with pain. Doc, I feel like death. This fever comes and goes. My back's killing me. When did it start, Sarge? 2 weeks ago. After we ate at that village, remember? They gave us fresh cheese. Best goat cheese I ever had. Marcus's eyes had widened then. Unpasteurized dairy in an endemic region. Sarge, I think you have brucellosis. The supervising physician, older and skeptical, had frowned. Johnson, that's extremely rare. Probably just the flu. But Marcus had been insistent. Sir, request permission to run brucella serology. The test came back positive. Marcus saved Sergeant Miller's life. Now Marcus stands in the Walter Reed hallway, his heart pounding. The pieces snap together. General Bradford just returned from the Middle East. He'd overheard nurses mention Qatar and Iraq 3 weeks ago. Undulant fever pattern. No response to standard antibiotics. It's the same disease. He knows it. At 7:30 a.m., Marcus sees Dr. Lisa Carter outside the ICU, a junior attending reviewing charts on her tablet. He approaches carefully. Dr. Carter, can I ask you something? Chen looks up, surprised. Oh, Marcus, right. You're Thomas's son. I met your dad in the cafeteria last month. How's he doing? He's doing well, thank you. Dr. Carter, I have some medical background. Army medic. And I couldn't help overhearing about General Bradford. Chen's expression shifts, polite but guarded. Marcus, I appreciate your service, but we have protocols. I know, Marcus says quickly. Has anyone considered brucellosis? The general was in Qatar and Iraq recently, right? The fever pattern, the lack of response to standard antibiotics. If he consumed unpasteurized dairy, Chen's eyebrows rise. That's actually a pretty detailed observation. But Marcus, brucella is extremely rare in... Dr. Whitmore's voice booms from behind them. Dr. Carter, are you consulting with custodial staff now? Both turn. Whitmore stands with two residents, arms crossed, his face carved from stone. Chen stammers, "No, Dr. Whitmore, I was just—" Whitmore cuts her off, his eyes fixed on Marcus. "You're Thomas Johnson's boy, aren't you? I heard you dropped out of some nursing program." "Medical school, sir," Marcus says calmly. "Johns Hopkins. I was in my second year when—" Whitmore laughs, sharp and dismissive. "Second-year dropout. And now you're diagnosing a 4-star general? That's rich." He turns to Carter. "Doctor, Carter, if you have time to chat with janitors, perhaps you should pick up extra shifts." Chen's face flushes red. Whitmore looks back at Marcus. "Son, stick to mopping floors. Leave medicine to people who actually finished school." The residents behind him snicker. One whispers to the other, loud enough for Marcus to hear. "Did the janitor just try to diagnose? That's hilarious." Marcus's hands ball into fists at his sides. His jaw clenches so tight it aches. But he says nothing. Whitmore walks away, calling over his shoulder. "Carter, conference room now. We're prepping for an emergency craniotomy." Craniotomy. Brain surgery. Marcus's blood runs cold. They're going to drill into the general's skull for a disease that isn't there. At noon, Marcus sits across from his father in the hospital cafeteria. Thomas Johnson, 60 years old now, uses a cane but moves with dignity, still wearing his own janitor uniform. The fluorescent lights cast shadows under his eyes. "You okay, son?" Thomas asks. "You look troubled." Marcus stares at his sandwich. "Pops, what if you knew something? Something that could save someone's life, but nobody would listen." Thomas sets down his coffee. "Is this about the general?" Marcus nods. Thomas sighs, long and weary. "Marcus, I've worked here 40 years, cleaned these floors since before you were born. You know what I learned? People like us are invisible. They look through us, not at us. But Dad, I know what's wrong with him. I believe you, son. You were the best medic in your unit. But these doctors," Thomas gestures around the cafeteria, "they've got degrees on walls, letters after their names, and we've got mops in our hands. That's all they see." The loudspeaker crackles overhead. "Code Blue, ICU 7. Code Blue." Marcus and Thomas lock eyes. Marcus bolts from his chair and runs. He reaches the ICU corridor breathless. Through the glass window he sees chaos. General Bradford seizing violently. 10 doctors surrounded him. Dr. Whitmore shouting orders. "Push diazepam! Get the OR ready! We're going in now!" Marcus pulls out his phone with shaking hands, Googles frantically. Brucella neurobrucellosis symptoms. The results load. Seizures, altered consciousness, can mimic brain abscess. Craniotomy is not recommended. Treat with antibiotics. His heart hammers. He pushes through the ICU door. A security guard blocks him immediately. "Staff only." "I need to speak to Dr. Whitmore," Marcus says. Whitmore turns, sees Marcus, and his face goes purple with rage. "Are you kidding me right now? Security!" Marcus's voice rises, desperate. "Doctor, please, you're making a mistake. It's brucellosis. If you operate, you could cause cerebral hemorrhage. Just run a brucella serology test. 30 minutes, that's all I'm asking." Whitmore steps forward, jabbing a finger toward Marcus's chest. "How dare you? You waltz into my ICU, question my diagnosis in front of my team." He points at the security guards. "You're fired. Oh, escort him out. I want him banned from this hospital." 2 guards grab Marcus's arms. He struggles, his voice breaking. "Just run the test. Please, he's going to die." Whitmore turns his back. "Get him out of my sight." As the guards drag Marcus toward the exit, he locks eyes with Dr. Carter across the room. She stands frozen, her face twisted with conflict, but she says nothing. She doesn't move. The ICU doors slam shut behind Marcus. The sound echoes through the hallway like a judge's gavel. In the parking lot, a security guard, a white man with cold eyes, shoves Marcus toward the curb. "You people always cause trouble," he mutters. Marcus stumbles, catches himself. Patients and visitors stare. A woman pulls her child closer. Marcus's face burns with shame. His phone buzzes. A text from the hospital HR department. "Employment terminated effective immediately. Badge deactivated. Do not return to the premises." Marcus sits on the curb, head in his hands. Inside that building, a good man is dying, and Marcus Johnson, who saved 47 lives under fire, can't save one more because nobody will listen to a black man in a janitor's uniform. Marcus sits in his Honda Civic, head in his hands. His phone rings. "Dad. Son, are they escorting you off campus?" "Yeah, Pops. I'm done. I tried." Silence. Then Thomas speaks, slow and firm. "Marcus, your whole life, you never walked away from someone who needed help. Remember Kandahar? You ran into fire to pull out Sergeant Davies. That was different. I had authority then. Now I'm nobody. You're not nobody. You're my son. You're a man who saved 47 lives. And you're the only person in that building who knows what's killing that general." Thomas pauses. "Your mama didn't raise you to give up. And I didn't raise you to let a good man die because some doctor's too proud to listen." Marcus wipes his eyes. "What do you want me to do?" "I'm banned." "Then don't use the front door." At 11:30 p.m., Marcus stands at Walter Reed's loading dock wearing his father's janitor uniform, slightly too big. The baseball cap pulled low. He wheels a cleaning cart toward the service entrance. The night security guard, George, glances up. "Tom? Working double?" Marcus keeps his head down, mimicking his father's voice. "Forgot something upstairs." George waves him through. "Don't work too hard, brother." Marcus exhales. He's in. The elevator carries him to the 7th floor, ICU level. His heart hammers against his ribs. The medical records room door is unlocked. Night shift always forgets. Inside, a computer sits logged in. Marcus types, "Bradford, William, General." The file opens. Marcus reads fast, his combat training sharpening every detail. Travel history. Qatar, March 15 to 22. Iraq, March 23 to 28. Note from base physician. General complained of mild fever on return. Attributed to jet lag. Dietary log, March 18th. Dinner with Qatari officials. The menu included fresh goat cheese, camel milk. Marcus's pulse spikes. Unpasteurized dairy in endemic region. Lab results. White blood cells elevated but not sepsis level. Liver enzymes are mildly elevated. The temperature chart shows an undulant pattern. Evening spikes, morning normal. MRI. Possible brain abscess versus encephalitis. Marcus photographs everything with his phone. Then he creates a new document and types. Differential diagnosis, brucellosis. Patient, General Bradford. Evidence, travel to endemic regions. Exposure to unpasteurized dairy. Undulant fever pattern. Pathognomonic for brucella. Mild hepatosplenomegaly. Failure to respond to standard antibiotics. Brucella resistant to cephalosporins. Recommended immediate action. Brucella serology. Blood culture. Hold craniotomy. Treatment if positive. Doxycycline plus rifampin, 6 weeks. Failure to diagnose equals death or permanent neurological damage. Submitted by a concerned healthcare provider. He prints 5 copies. Hands steady now. This is a mission. Marcus distributes them strategically. Dr. Carter's desk. Chief of Medicine's mailbox. Nursing station. ICU bulletin board. Patient advocacy office. Final stop. Dr. Carter's locker. He slides the last copy underneath with a handwritten note. Dr. Carter, please read. Trust your instincts. The janitor was right. A friend. At 12:47 a.m., Marcus exits through the loading dock. George doesn't look up. Marcus drives home in silence, his father's uniform folded beside him. He doesn't know if anyone will read what he left. He doesn't know if it matters. But he's done what a medic does. He's given them the diagnosis. Now, they have to choose whether to listen. At 6 o'clock a.m., Dr. Lisa Carter opens her locker in the physician's lounge. A document slides out and falls to the floor. She picks it up, scanning the first line. Differential diagnosis, brucellosis. Her eyes widen as she reads. Travel history. Dietary exposure. Undulant fever pattern. She pulls out her phone, types into Google, brucellosis symptoms. Middle East. The results match perfectly. Chen's hands tremble. She reads the document again, then looks at the handwritten note. The janitor was right. She runs to the ICU. General Bradford's condition has deteriorated overnight. Temperature 103, blood pressure dropping. The surgery is scheduled for 10 o'clock a.m., 3 hours away. Chen finds Dr. Patricia Moore, the chief resident, reviewing charts at the nursing station. Patty, look at this. Someone left this analysis. What if we're wrong? Moore takes the document, frowns as she reads. Brucellosis? Carter. That's 1 in a million. But it fits. Carter points to the fever chart on the monitor. Look at that pattern. That's textbook undulant fever. Moore hands the document back. Where did you get this? Chen hesitates. Someone left it for me. Who? I think the janitor's son, Marcus Johnson. He was a combat medic. Moore's expression hardens. The guy Whitmore fired yesterday? Carter, if you bring this to Whitmore and cite a janitor as your source, he'll destroy your career. But what if Marcus is right and we kill the general? A long pause stretches between them. Moore looks at the document again, then at the fever chart, then back at Carter. Then we need more than a janitor's hunch, Moore says finally. We need proof. At 8 o'clock a.m., the pre-op conference room fills with the surgical team. Whitmore stands at the head of the table, pointing to brain scans projected on the screen. Gentlemen, we proceed with craniotomy at 10 o'clock a.m. Imaging shows suspected abscess in the right temporal lobe. We'll drain, culture, and... Dr. Whitmore, Carter interrupts from the doorway. I'd like to suggest we postpone surgery. The room goes silent. Every head turns toward her. Whitmore's voice drops to ice. Excuse me? Chen steps forward, the document clutched in her hand. I received an analysis suggesting an alternative diagnosis. Brucellosis. The patient's travel history, dietary exposure, fever pattern, all consistent. Whitmore walks toward her slowly. And where did this analysis come from, Dr. Carter? An anonymous medical professional. Anonymous. Whitmore stops in front of her. Dr. Carter, did this anonymous professional perhaps wear a janitor's uniform? Chen says nothing. Her silence is answer enough. Whitmore turns to address the room, his voice dripping with contempt. Yesterday, a delusional janitor, a medical school dropout, disrupted my ICU with this same nonsense. Now he's apparently recruiting my own residents to his conspiracy theory. He faces Carter again. Brucellosis is exceedingly rare. I've been practicing medicine for 30 years. I've seen 2 cases. This patient has a neuroinfection requiring immediate surgical intervention. But sir, Carter's voice cracks, a simple blood test could... A simple blood test? Whitmore's voice rises. Brucella serology takes 3 to 5 days. Blood cultures take a week. This man doesn't have a week. He's dying now, Moore whispers to Carter from across the table. Drop it! Whitmore points at the door. Dr. Carter, you're off this case. Report to ER rotation. Immediately. But now. Chen leaves, fighting tears. The conference room door closes behind her with a soft click that sounds like defeat. At 9 o'clock a.m., inside ICU 7, General Bradford lies unconscious, tubes and wires connecting him to machines that beep and hiss. His wife, Margaret Bradford, sits beside the bed holding his hand. She's 60, elegant even in her exhaustion, her eyes red from crying. A knock at the door. Thomas Johnson enters, pushing his cleaning cart. Margaret looks up. "Oh, hello." Thomas nods respectfully. "Ma'am, just need to empty the trash. I'll be quick. Take your time." Margaret's voice is hollow. "I'm not going anywhere." Thomas works slowly, emptying the small waste bin, wiping down the windowsill. He glances at the general, then at Margaret's face. "Ma'am," Thomas says quietly, "if you don't mind me asking, how long has the general been sick?" Margaret seems grateful someone is asking. 3 weeks. Started with a fever after he came back from Qatar. Doctors thought it was jet lag, then flu, then infection. Now they're saying his brain is infected." She looks at Thomas, her voice breaking. "They're doing surgery in 1 hour. They're drilling into his skull. I'm so scared." Thomas steps closer. "Ma'am, I shouldn't say this. But my son, Marcus, he was an army medic, best in his unit. He thinks your husband has a different disease. Something from the Middle East. Something the doctors are missing." Margaret stands abruptly. "What disease?" "It's called brucellosis, from unpasteurized dairy." "Did the general eat any local cheese or milk in Qatar?" Margaret's hand goes to her mouth. "Yes. There was a state dinner. They served traditional foods. He told me about this amazing goat cheese." She grabs Thomas's arm. "Where is your son now?" "Home. Banned from the hospital." Margaret's jaw sets with determination. "What's his number?" At 9:30 a.m., Marcus sits on his couch, staring at his combat medic notebook. His phone rings. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Marcus Johnson?" A woman's voice, strained with urgency. "Yes, ma'am. Who is this?" "My name is Margaret Bradford. I'm General William Bradford's wife. Your father told me you know what's wrong with my husband." Marcus sits up straight. "Ma'am, Yes. I believe he has brucellosis. It's a bacterial infection from—" "I know," Thomas explained. Margaret's voice sharpens. "Marcus, they're operating in 30 minutes. If you're right, I need to stop this surgery. But I need you to convince the doctors. Can you do that?" Marcus laughs bitterly. "Ma'am, they banned me from the hospital. The chief of medicine called me a dropout and a fraud." "Marcus," Margaret's voice cuts through like a command. "My husband is dying. You're telling me you can save him, but you're going to let pride stop you?" The words hit Marcus like a slap. "It's not pride, ma'am. They won't listen. Then make them listen. Come to this hospital right now. I'll meet you at the front entrance. As the patient's wife and medical proxy, I have the right to request any consultation I want. I'm requesting you. Ma'am, I'm not a doctor. You were a soldier. You saved lives under fire." Margaret's voice softens slightly. "This is just another battlefield." Marcus stands, his heart pounding. He looks at the photograph tucked in his notebook. 47 faces smiling back at him. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. At 9:50 a.m., the ICU conference room is packed. Dr. Whitmore stands at the head of the table with the surgical team and anesthesiologist going over final pre-op details. Equipment lists, incision coordinates, expected complications. The door bursts open. Margaret Bradford enters, her posture rigid with authority. Behind her walks Marcus Johnson in khakis and a button-down shirt, carrying his leather field notebook. Whitmore stands, his face going red. "Mrs. Bradford, what is—" He sees Marcus, and his voice explodes. "Absolutely not! Security!" Mrs. Bradford raises one hand, and the room freezes. "Dr. Whitmore, as my husband's healthcare proxy, I'm requesting a second opinion." "This is Marcus Johnson. He's consulted on my husband's case. This man is not a physician." Whitmore's voice shakes with rage. "He's a janitor." He's a decorated combat medic with 6 years of battlefield experience, Margaret says, her voice like steel. And he has a diagnosis you haven't considered. Brucellosis. Whitmore spits the word. Yes, I've heard this delusion. Marcus steps forward, his voice calm and professional despite his trembling hands. Dr. Whitmore, may I present my evidence? Whitmore crosses his arms. You have 5 minutes. Then surgery proceeds. Marcus opens his notebook, his fingers steady now. General Bradford returned from Qatar and Iraq 3 weeks ago. He attended a state dinner on March 18th where he consumed unpasteurized goat cheese and camel milk, both common vectors for Brucella melitensis in the Arabian Peninsula. He pulls out printed charts from his notebook. His fever pattern shows classic undulant characteristics, spikes in the evening, normalizing by morning. This is pathognomonic for brucellosis. Whitmore opens his mouth, but Marcus continues. He's not responding to cephalosporins or vancomycin because brucella is intrinsically resistant to those antibiotics. The mild hepatosplenomegaly noted on day 2, the arthralgia he complained about, all consistent with brucellosis, not sepsis. Dr. Moore leans forward, studying the charts. The fever pattern. He's right. That is textbook undulant fever. Whitmore's voice rises. Neurobrucellosis can present with brain abscesses, but his MRI shows diffuse changes, not a focal abscess, Marcus interrupts. Real neurobrucellosis causes meningitis or encephalitis treated with antibiotics, not surgery. If you operate, you risk hemorrhage, herniation, and you don't address the underlying infection. The room falls silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Dr. Carter speaks from the doorway where she's been standing. Dr. Whitmore, what if we just run the brucella serology? If it's negative, we proceed with surgery. That test takes days, Whitmore snaps. Standard ELISA takes 90 minutes, Marcus says. I called the lab before I came. They can run it stat. Margaret Bradford steps forward. Dr. Whitmore, I'm asking, as a wife terrified of losing her husband, run the test. Please. The silence stretches. Whitmore's face is purple, his jaw working. Every person in the room watches him. Dr. Moore speaks quietly. Sir, if there's even a 10% chance he's right. Whitmore's hands are shaking. His voice comes out strangled. Fine. Delay surgery. Run the test. He points at Marcus, his finger trembling. But when it comes back negative, Mrs. Bradford, I expect a formal apology to this institution. His eyes bore into Marcus. And you will never set foot in this hospital again. Marcus meets his gaze. Steady. Understood, sir. A nurse leaves immediately to take blood samples. The surgical team begins to disperse, confused. Margaret Bradford sits down heavily, her hands clasped in prayer. Marcus stands by the window, looking out at the parking lot where he sat defeated yesterday. His phone buzzes. A text from his father. One word. Proud. Dr. Carter approaches Marcus. That took courage. Or stupidity, Marcus says. They're the same thing sometimes. Carter extends her hand. I'm sorry I didn't speak up yesterday. Marcus shakes it. You're speaking up now. That's what matters. The clock on the wall ticks forward. 10:15 a.m. 10:30 a.m. The lab promised 90 minutes. In the waiting room, Marcus sits with Margaret Bradford and his father, Thomas, who arrived minutes after Marcus called. No one speaks. The silence is thick with hope and dread. At 11:15 a.m., Dr. Carter runs into the waiting room, her shoes squeaking on the linoleum. She's holding a printout, her hands shaking, her eyes wide. Marcus stands. His heart stops. Chen looks at him, then at Margaret. Her voice comes out in a breathless rush. Brucella IgM antibody positive. Brucella IgG antibody positive. She turns to Marcus fully now, and her eyes are shining. You were right. You were completely right. Marcus exhales, a sound like he's been holding his breath for 3 years. Relief, vindication, and overwhelming emotion crash through him all at once. His knees nearly buckle. Margaret Bradford collapses into her chair, sobbing into her hands. Thomas wraps his arms around his son, and Marcus feels tears streaming down his own face. What does this mean? Margaret looks up at Dr. Carter, desperate. Will he survive? With proper treatment, yes. Carter's voice breaks with emotion. We start doxycycline and rifampin immediately. Full recovery expected in 6 to 8 weeks. Margaret covers her face, her shoulders shaking. 3 weeks of terror releasing all at once. In the ICU conference room, Dr. Whitmore sits alone, staring at the lab results on the table in front of him. His hands tremble as he lifts the paper closer, as if reading it again will change the words. Positive. Positive. The room feels too small, the air too thick. Dr. Moore enters quietly. Sir, we've started antibiotic therapy, already seeing temperature reduction. Whitmore doesn't look up. His voice comes out hollow. I almost killed him. Moore says nothing. I almost drilled into that man's brain. Whitmore's hands drop to the table, for a disease he didn't have. Sir, brucellosis is rare. And a janitor diagnosed it. Whitmore finally looks up, his face ashen. A dropout. Someone I humiliated. Someone I fired. He puts his head in his hands. Oh God, what have I done? 36 hours pass. The antibiotics work fast. General Bradford's fever breaks. His blood pressure stabilizes. The seizures stop. His organs, stressed to the breaking point, begin to recover. On the morning of the 3rd day, his eyes flutter open. Margaret is there, gripping his hand, and when she sees his eyes focus on her face, she breaks down completely. I'm here, baby. You're okay. You're going to be okay. Bradford's voice comes out as a hoarse whisper. Maggie? What happened? You had brucellosis from that goat cheese in Qatar. A weak smile crosses his face. I knew that cheese was too good to be true. Margaret laughs through her tears. The doctors almost missed it. But someone figured it out. Someone who I think you met before. Who? A combat medic. From Kandahar. Margaret squeezes his hand. His name is Marcus Johnson. Bradford's eyes go wide. His entire body tenses. Johnson? Specialist Johnson? 68? Whiskey? Margaret stares at him, shocked. Do you remember him? Bradford tries to sit up, winces, falls back. Remember him? That kid saved my life. Convoy ambush 2017. I was bleeding out. He put a tourniquet on my leg, kept me conscious, stayed with me until evac. His voice strengthens despite the tubes. I tried to find him after, put him in for a commendation, but they told me he'd transferred units. He's here. Margaret's voice shakes. He diagnosed you. The doctors didn't believe him, but he didn't give up. He's here? At Walter Reed? Bradford's face shows confusion. Why would a medic be... He works here, Margaret says carefully, as a janitor. Bradford goes completely still. What? He dropped out of medical school to take care of his father. She tells him everything. The firing, the humiliation, the overnight infiltration, the fight to be heard. And when you came in dying, he was the only one who knew what was wrong. Tears stream down Bradford's face. Bring him to me. Right now. 20 minutes later, Marcus enters the ICU room. He's still wearing his janitor uniform because he has no other clothes at the hospital. He stands at the foot of the bed, nervous, uncertain. Bradford stares at him. Even weakened, even pale, his eyes are sharp. I know that face. Even under all that dust and blood 8 years ago, I knew that face. Marcus's voice shakes. Sir, it's an honor to see you recovered. Son, come here. Marcus approaches slowly. Bradford reaches out his hand. Marcus takes it, and Bradford's grip is surprisingly strong. 8 years ago, you pulled me out of hell. Bradford's voice fills the room. You stopped the bleeding. You kept me talking so I wouldn't go into shock. You told me about your father, your dreams of becoming a doctor. You made me promise I'd stay alive to see my daughter graduate college. Marcus nods, unable to speak, tears flowing freely now. I remember every second. Bradford's own eyes shine. I tried to find you, put you in for Silver Star, but they told me you'd left the army. My father got sick, sir. Marcus's voice breaks. I had to... I know. Margaret told me everything. Bradford squeezes Marcus's hand harder. Son, you saved my life twice. Once in the desert, once in this hospital. Both times when I was surrounded by people who were supposed to help me, you were the one who actually did. Bradford's voice takes on the tone of command. Now, I'm going to do something for you. Sir, you don't have to... Quiet. That's an order. Bradford's expression softens slightly. Marcus, how much is left on your Johns Hopkins student loan? Marcus looks confused. About $180,000. But sir, consider it paid. I'm making a call today. Marcus's eyes go wide. Sir, I can't accept. Not asking. Ordering. You're going back to school. You're finishing that medical degree. Bradford leans forward. And when you graduate, you're coming back here as a doctor. This hospital needs people like you. Thomas Johnson has been standing in the doorway. He steps forward now, and Bradford sees him. You must be Mr. Johnson. Bradford extends his other hand. Your son is a hero. Twice over. This isn't charity. This is paying a debt. He looks at both of them. Marcus Johnson saved my life when I was nobody. Just a bleeding soldier in the dirt. Now he saved me when I was a general with 100 doctors around. That tells me one thing. He doesn't care about rank, title, or status. He cares about doing what's right. Bradford's voice grows fierce. That's the kind of doctor we need. That's the kind of man we need. Marcus breaks down, turns into his father's arms. Thomas holds his son, tears streaming down his weathered face, and for the first time in 3 years, Marcus Johnson lets himself believe that maybe the world hasn't forgotten who he really is. Margaret Bradford stands and wraps her arms around both of them. In that hospital room, surrounded by machines that beep and hiss, 4 people who came from different worlds find themselves bound together by 2 miracles. One in the desert sand, one in a sterile ICU, both performed by the same steady hands. Outside in the hallway, Dr. Carter watches through the window. She pulls out her phone and texts Dr. Moore. You need to see this. Moore arrives 5 minutes later, looks through the window, and watches the general embrace the janitor. This changes everything, Carter whispers. Moore nods slowly. It already has. Down the hall, in his office, Dr. Whitmore sits with his head in his hands. On his desk lies his resignation letter, unsigned. His phone rings. It's the hospital director. He lets it go to voicemail. He knows what's coming. He knows what he's done. And for the first time in 30 years, Richard Whitmore understands that all his degrees, all his credentials, all his pride meant nothing when measured against one man's courage to speak truth in the face of absolute dismissal. The janitor was right, and Whitmore was wrong. Those 6 words will follow him for the rest of his career. In the ICU, General Bradford makes a phone call. Within the hour, Johns Hopkins University receives notice that Marcus Johnson's full tuition will be paid by the Bradford Foundation, effective immediately. Within 2 hours, Walter Reed's hospital director receives a call from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. The words are simple and absolute. Fix this, now. And finally, Marcus Johnson, combat medic, medical school dropout, janitor, and twice-over lifesaver, sits in a hospital room and watches the impossible unfold before his eyes. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive like thunder. Sometimes it comes quietly, in a hospital room, delivered by a grateful patient who refuses to let courage go unrewarded. 48 hours later, the hospital director's office is filled with tension. Dr. Helena Martinez sits behind her desk, her face carved from stone. Present in the room, Marcus Johnson, Dr. Richard Whitmore, Margaret Bradford, and General William Bradford in a wheelchair, still weak but insistent on attending. Martinez speaks with surgical precision. "Gentlemen, Mrs. Bradford, thank you for coming. We've completed our review of General Bradford's case." She turns to Whitmore. "Dr. Whitmore, your misdiagnosis nearly resulted in catastrophic surgical error. You ignored credible differential diagnosis from multiple sources. You allowed personal bias to override medical judgment." Whitmore stares at the floor, his shoulders slumped. "I have no excuse, ma'am. You're being removed as Chief of Internal Medicine, effective immediately." Martinez's voice is iron. "You'll complete mandatory training on diagnostic humility and unconscious bias recognition. You'll remain as an attending physician, but under supervision for 12 months. I understand." Whitmore turns slowly to face Marcus. The words come hard, each one scraped from somewhere deep. "Mr. Johnson, I owe you an apology that words can't express. I let my ego nearly kill a patient. You showed courage I failed to show. The courage to be right when everyone said you were wrong." Marcus meets his eyes. "Dr. Whitmore, I respect your apology. We all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them." Martinez slides a document across her desk toward Marcus. "Mr. Johnson, effective today, you're rehired, not as custodial staff, but as medical consultant, military and tropical medicine. You'll work with our infectious disease team while completing your medical degree." She continues. "Johns Hopkins has agreed to readmit you with full scholarship, courtesy of the Bradford Foundation. You start next semester. Upon graduation, you have a guaranteed residency position here at Walter Reed." Marcus's hands shake as he takes the document. "Ma'am, I don't know what to say." General Bradford smiles from his wheelchair. "Say yes, sir, and get back to saving lives, Doc." Marcus laughs, wiping his eyes. "Yes, sir." Martinez stands. "One more thing, Mr. Johnson. We're instituting the Every Voice Matters protocol. Any staff member, regardless of position, can submit medical concerns directly to senior leadership. No retaliation. Because you taught us that sometimes the person with the least credentials has the most wisdom." The room erupts in applause. Thomas Johnson, standing in the corner where he's been silent this whole time, wipes his eyes and grins with a pride that's been 40 years in the making. 6 months later, Marcus Johnson sits in the front row of a Johns Hopkins lecture hall wearing a crisp white coat, stethoscope draped around his neck. The professor finishes his lecture on tropical diseases and sets down his marker. Before we leave, the professor says, "I want to introduce someone special. Marcus Johnson, would you come up?" Marcus walks to the podium, surprised, his heart racing. The professor turns to the class. Marcus recently returned to Hopkins after a 3-year hiatus. Many of you don't know this, but Marcus is the combat medic who saved General William Bradford's life. Twice. Once in combat in Afghanistan, and once by diagnosing neurobrucellosis when an entire hospital of specialists missed it. The lecture hall erupts in applause. Students stand. Marcus's face flushes. "Marcus," the professor says, "would you share what you learned from that experience?" Marcus grips the podium, steadying himself. "I learned that medicine isn't about ego. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about listening, really listening to the patient, the symptoms, the story. General Bradford's body was telling us exactly what was wrong. We just had to hear it." A student in the third row raises her hand. "Marcus, what would you say to someone who feels like they don't belong in medicine because of where they come from?" Marcus pauses, thinking of his father mopping floors for 40 years. I'd say your background isn't a weakness, it's a strength. I learned things in Afghanistan no textbook taught me. My father taught me about dignity, hard work, and perseverance. Those lessons saved a man's life. He looks across the sea of faces. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't belong. Medicine needs people from every background, every story, every struggle. Because our patients come from everywhere, and they deserve doctors who understand them. The students give him a standing ovation. Marcus returns to his seat. His eyes burning with tears he refuses to let fall. 1 year later, Marcus walks through Walter Reed's main entrance wearing a pristine white coat. His name tag reads, Marcus Johnson, M.D., internal medicine resident. He passed the ICU where everything changed. Dr. Carter, now senior attending, sees him and runs over. Dr. Johnson, welcome back. Marcus grins. It feels good to be back, and to use the front door this time. They laugh together, the kind of laughter that comes from surviving something impossible. You're assigned to my service today, Carter says. Ready? Absolutely. As they walk the corridors, Marcus passes Dr. Whitmore, who now works as a regular attending physician. Whitmore stops, extends his hand. Dr. Johnson, good to see you. Marcus shakes it firmly. Dr. Whitmore, how have you been? Humbler. Better. Whitmore's voice is quiet. You taught me that lesson. They exchange nods, not quite friendship, but mutual respect earned through fire. At lunch, Marcus sits with his father in the hospital cafeteria. Thomas is semi-retired now, working only part-time, his body finally allowed to rest. How's the first day, Dr. Johnson? Thomas asks, his eyes twinkling. Perfect, Pops. Hey, I got assigned to a patient today. Guess who? Who? General Bradford. He's back for his follow-up appointment. Thomas smiles wide. That's fitting. Marcus goes to General Bradford's room that afternoon. The general looks healthy now, strong, the color returned to his face. Well, if it isn't my favorite doctor, Bradford says, grinning. General, good to see you fully recovered. Thanks to you. Bradford gestures to the chair beside his bed. Twice. Sit down. I want to tell you something. Marcus sits. After you saved me, I established a scholarship fund, the Marcus Johnson Medical Scholarship, for veterans and children of service workers who want to become doctors. We've funded 12 students so far. Marcus stares at him, speechless. You already did enough, Bradford continues. You showed us all what real medicine looks like. Now we're making sure others like you get the chance you almost didn't have. They shake hands across the bed. Soldier and medic, patient and doctor, two men bound together by two miracles and an unbreakable respect. Outside the window, the sun sets over Walter Reed, painting the sky orange and gold. Marcus Johnson has come full circle, from the kid who mopped these floors to the doctor who will change them forever. The camera follows Marcus through the hospital corridors, his white coat billowing as he walks with purpose. Sunlight streams through tall windows, illuminating his path. He stops at a patient's bedside, placing his stethoscope with the same gentle precision he learned in Kandahar. Marcus's voice carries over the images, quiet but powerful. They say medicine is about knowledge, tests, degrees, credentials. But that's not what saves lives. The scene shifts to Marcus teaching a group of young medical students gathered around a hospital bed, all of them listening intently. What saves lives is listening when everyone else stops hearing. It's seeing what others overlook. It's having the courage to speak truth when silence is easier. Cut to Marcus visiting a military cemetery, standing before rows of white headstones, his hand resting on one marker. My journey taught me that your worth isn't measured by titles on a wall. It's measured by what you do when someone needs you most. The image changes to Marcus kneeling beside his father's chair at home, helping Thomas with his physical therapy exercises. Thomas's face beams with pride. I carry 47 names in my heart. 47 soldiers I brought home alive. I carry my father's sacrifice, 40 years of mopping floors so I could dream bigger. I carry General Bradford's second chance, a reminder that our lives intersect in ways we never imagine. Final scene. Marcus back at Walter Reed, surrounded by residents hanging on his every word as he teaches. If you're watching this and you feel invisible, if people look through you instead of at you, if they judge your worth by where you came from instead of where you're going, remember this. A janitor's son saved a general, not because of a degree, because of heart, knowledge, and the refusal to stay silent when it mattered. The screen fades to text. Marcus Johnson graduated Johns Hopkins Medical School with honors. He now serves as attending physician at Walter Reed and teaches tropical medicine to military medics. Dr. Richard Whitmore completed bias training and now co-teaches with Marcus. General William Bradford recovered fully and continues to advocate for veteran health care. The Marcus Johnson Medical Scholarship has funded 47 students, one for each life Marcus saved in combat. The narrator's voice returns, warm and inspiring. Every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Every person you underestimate might be the one who saves you. If this story moved you, share it. Because somewhere, someone needs to hear that your circumstances don't define your worth. Your courage does. Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut to hear more stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Comment below. Who in your life deserves recognition they've never received? Remember, the greatest heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear janitor uniforms, and sometimes they become the doctors who change medicine forever. The final image. Marcus and his father standing together outside Walter Reed, both in their respective uniforms, janitor and doctor, equal in dignity, bound by love. The screen fades to black.
The story you heard today wasn't cleaned up. It was told exactly as it happened. At Black Voices Uncut, we believe that's the only way truth can live. If you felt something, hit like, comment, and your reaction, and subscribe. Every week, we bring you voices that refuse to be silenced.